Hi, this is Doug Skinner from AFS. I appreciate you watching this short video. With so much discussion on the odds and timing of a recession, we wanted to take a look at some key indicators of economic activity today. Some metrics that you see referenced quite commonly are really lagging indicators of economic performance. We wanted to share some metrics we track that give us a better indication of what will happen as opposed to just confirming what has already happened. So, for folks who follow the economy and banking in particular, here are a number of closely followed metrics. The first group are closely followed and their updates are highly anticipated, yet they're really backward looking. Inflation is a great example. It's followed very closely, but most of the headline figures that are published just tell us how prices compared to maybe last year or last month. They don't really tell us where prices are going or even where they are right now. Now, there are some newer metrics out there that are attempting to tell us where inflation is heading. One metric is called Trueflation. It actually fell below 3% this week. And the Cleveland Fed produces something called an inflation nowcast, which uses things like gasoline prices and is actually predicting a big drop in the May CPI. So hopefully some of these metrics using more real-time data continue to gain traction and acceptance. The second group, those being the yield curve, the US manufacturing PMI, and surveys like the Fed survey on underwriting standards, they're much more forward-looking indicators of what we can expect moving forward. So let's take a look at a few of them. Employment is one of the most closely watched metrics when it comes to discussing the state of the economy. Job growth, unemployment claims, job openings, and quits. They're all highly anticipated figures each month. The problem, though, with employment figures is they tend to look okay until they're not. Longer term, they will correlate well with things like loan growth and delinquency and default rates. But as far as being a leading indicator of what's to come, they don't really tell us that. Another closely watched indicator of economic activity is retail trade. But as you can see from this chart, retail sales tend to be fine until they're not. There's been nothing indicative about retail sales levels and predicting a downturn in economic performance. On the other hand, one of the more reliable indicators of economic recession is when the yield curve inverts. This picture portrays the difference between the 10-year rate and the Fed funds rate, and it actually inverted last November. Now, some people prefer to look at the 210 gap, but I prefer this one. Now, there may have been some instances where the yield curve inverted and a recession didn't happen, but an inverted yield curve has preceded every single US recession in our history. And once the yield curve does invert, it typically takes a year or more before we have a recession. Another leading indicator we like is the manufacturing PMI, or the Purchasing Managers Index. It's a reading of economic activity in the manufacturing sector specifically, and it factors in things like new orders, output, employment levels, and prices. And as you can see from this chart, once it gets below 50, it's been a pretty good indicator that a recession is coming. The manufacturing PMI slipped below 50 last November. And then in my view, one of the better leading indicators of the economy is a survey the Fed conducts quarterly, where they ask senior lenders of leading banks a series of questions about their lending business. And the results we're seeing right now suggest that lending conditions are actually among the tightest we've seen in the last 30 years. But it stands to reason, given the credit shock we've experienced caused by 3 of the largest bank failures in history in the last couple of months, and also the major challenges the industry is facing, banking in particular, in terms of deposit growth, funding costs, and profitability. Thank you for your time. Have a good day, and give us a call or send us an email if you have any questions.